Good.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Lower Gwinnett Township Board of Supervisors regular meeting for May the 11th. Please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and
to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
liberty and
justice
justice for all.
for all.
We have one announcement here. Tonight's meeting is being video recorded. First order of business is receipt of the minutes of April 27th. Are there any questions from the supervisors?
No.
No,
None. Can I have a motion?
so moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Next up is the receipt of invoice history for March 2021. Are there any questions from the supervisors? I'll take
No.
that as no. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second? All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, next up is receipt of the year-to-date budget report and balance sheet, January and February 2021. Any questions from the supervisors?
We did not have that, Mr. Chairman. That was not ready for tonight's meeting.
Okay, let's table that then.
Yes.
Very good, thank you. Next up, building and zoning, introduction of the development at 820 North Bethlehem Pike, which is a daycare and medical office building. I understand Kate Harper, our former township supervisor and state rep is here. Is that correct?
She is on the line.
I am here. My video won't work because the co-host disabled it. Wait a minute.
Ah.
Now I am.
There
Okay,
you are.
great. Sorry, I am here. Thank you very much for putting me on the agenda. And I'm here actually tonight as a lawyer on behalf of David Goldstein and Beth Pike LLC. David is also here. I see him hooking in now. He's a Lower Gwinnett resident who lives on Radcliffe Lane. He is the owner of what used to be the Pike Restaurant a while back. And David would like to see the Pike Restaurant redeveloped and has come up with a plan and submitted it to the township and also to the zoning board to get approval for the use. We thought tonight, because it's such a visible location in the township and you might have concerns about it, we thought we would just show you what the big picture is. And of course, we have to go through the zoning hearing board and land development, and we know that. I did send to Craig some architectural schematic type drawings, or Jamie, does somebody have them so we can put that up?
I have it, Jamie, if you don't.
Good, that's fine. That's the front. What is now the Pike Restaurant, we will take down and build a brand new building for a Goddard daycare. Now, Lower Gwinnett has approved a daycare in this location previously. Several of you were on the board in 2013 when a daycare was approved right at this location, but it never got built. And that was before Mr. Goldstein purchased the property. So we would take the building that used to be the Pike, take that down and build this brand new building that meets Goddard's requirements. They are a pretty well-known and wide franchise for daycare centers, and they have specific requirements with respect to what they want for the kids. And so we would need to build a new building to meet their requirements. In the back, which since 1989 is a house that once housed the people who owned the Pike Restaurant, the O'Briens and the Pappases. The house, which is in the back, yeah, there it is, will be refurbished or renovated so it can be an office. It's actually been an office, as I said, pursuant to a zoning hearing board decision in 1989. And in order to be used as an office now, of course, it's going to need, handicap accessibility and things like that. But we're basically going to reuse that building. So if we could go back to the beginning, right? Okay, let's do them in order. Shall we do it that way?
That'll be great. That'll be great. Thanks, Kate.
All right, so I don't want to take all your time, but what I want to do is run through these schematics and then answer any questions that you have. I believe our engineer Joel Kamat is on also. If he's not, we can get him, but in any event, so that's what the building will look like from Bethlehem Pike. It's set back a bit from where the Pike restaurant is now, and the Pike's been empty for, I don't know, 15 years,
Long time.
longer than that. Okay.
A long time.
Yeah, and it's a very visible location. It's sort of at the top of the hill as you come up Bethlehem Pike heading towards Ambler. It's on your left-hand side at the top of the hill. And so we would replace it with this very nice building, which David went to the trouble of making sure had a Lower Gwinnett look to it by making sure we had some stone facade on the front. So it meets Goddard's requirements, but we're hoping that it meets Lower Gwinnett's requirements so that it looks good in what is a visible location on the Pike. Next slide. This is what it'll look like from the air, I guess, if you were above Bethlehem Pike. So you'd come in from Bethlehem Pike. If you wanted to go to the daycare center, you would turn right and go into the daycare center parking lot. If you wanted to go to the office building, you would keep on going straight back to the office building, the house now office building, okay? Next. If you were at street level on Bethlehem Pike, it would look like this. We did ask the architect who did the schematic drawings to use the landscape that's on our land development plan. So hopefully that's exactly what it'll look like. Yes, this is computer generated, but the idea was to show it as how it would be. It would have a sidewalk and everything in front of it. To the right of this property is the Axe office building. To the left of this property is a little shopping center that has it's a catty corner and has a bunch of stores in it. And behind it is a beer distributor. And behind that and touching our property are ball fields for Gwinnett Mercy Elementary. And on the other side behind us would be the Axe retirement community. Next slide. There's the office building. The house turned into an office building in 1989. And then if the last slide is the overall viewpoint. It's the land development plan colored in. It looks like we cut off the back. I don't know if that was my fault or yours. I apologize, Craig. Looked like maybe I cut it off when we put it together. But if you can see it, you can see the daycare center's in the front, parking lot and everything for the daycare center. Behind the daycare center is a fenced play yard. And it's all fenced, keep the kids safe. And then behind that is the parking lot for the house turned into an office building. So that's basically it. We think that this would look a lot better than the Pike. And it's obviously a use that Lower Gwinnett's approved before, because you approved the daycare center there before, it just never got built. David thinks that the Goddard can make a go of it, and Goddard has a franchisee who's already running a successful Goddard operation in Horsham. So, I mean, that's basically it. We think this is an important piece of property for Lower Gwinnett, and we know how hard you've been working on revitalizing the Pike. And several of you were on the board in 2013 when the previous daycare center was approved. Not everybody, but several of you, a majority. So we'll take questions. And if I don't know the answer, see if we can find David Goldstein, the owner, and he'll take it. But if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer what I can.
Well, thank you for your presentation, Kate. The drawing looks great. Couple of questions. I see that there's a fenced-in area behind the daycare. What's the area on the side? I can't read that description.
I believe we probably have a fenced-in trash enclosure on that right side.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's where that is. Okay.
And what
And
about
then there's
behind
more
it right
play
there?
area. The fenced-in area for the kids has playground equipment in it. Will have.
Kate, you want me to answer that?
Yeah, sure, David. If David's the owner, he's a Lower Gwinnett resident too. You can answer that. You probably know better than I.
Yeah, there's two playground areas depending on the children's age. So the one on the side is the younger children, and the one in the back is for the older children.
Okay.
David, what ages are we talking about?
It's actually infants, I believe, and I could be wrong. I think it goes up to kindergarten.
Right.
Okay. Is there enough parking spaces in the front of the building to accommodate the expected residents or students?
Yeah, well, the parking you see in the front was specified as to what they need in there. They call it a test fit. I think there's roughly 39, but for Lower Gwinnett's requirements, the additional parking is in the rear. And in addition to that, we have an agreement with the shopping center to our north, and according to Lower Gwinnett's code, we've given them 12 spaces on our lot. So some of that parking is the additional parking for your requirements, and the other is for the additional parking we're required to provide for the site to our north, the shopping center to our north.
And that's not
Yeah,
depicted
sure.
on here, right?
Zoning ordinances call it shared parking.
Shared parking.
Yeah, and the shared parking's not depicted here, is that correct?
It is. It's part of the overall plan. And we meet the requirements of the Lower Gwinnett zoning ordinance for parking, even giving shared parking to our neighbor to the left.
Okay.
I have some questions for
Yeah.
Mr. Goldstein. Mr. Goldstein, first of all, it's a pleasure to be able to talk to you. I haven't met you officially. I've been around a little while, and I remember this coming before us before. And there's a couple of concerns I have, not concerns, questions. The previous developer that came to the township to present this, I was very emphatic with them to try to get an emergency exit in the back of the beverage store, which is all the way in the back to the left. And I understand from that owner that that was granted to the previous developer. I'm hoping that you could also obtain that emergency access that was supposedly granted to the previous developer that fell through. That's one question. And Kate, do you have any comment on that?
Well, I can.
First time we're hearing it, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I didn't realize that's what it was, but I have a copy of the previous plans,
Uh-huh.
and I did notice that. I didn't know that was emergency exit. I had
Yeah.
no indication of that.
Yeah. With working with the police and fire and with daycare, I had a huge concern because what if there was a problem at that building, no matter if it's developed by you or the previous developer that came in, when you think of parents, ambulance, police, fire equipment, and so forth, I thought to have an emergency accessibility in the back, in particular, that the fire department would be aware of, that if we could get it, take advantage of it. And they did, I believe, and I think, Kate, you can check. I think it is accessible and for something that Mr. Goldstein can get. And I would encourage that. That's number one. If you could do that for us.
Well, let me check into it. I can tell you on the other plan, I saw that. I had no idea that was emergency. I thought that was just, something for additional circulation.
No, it was in the back of the beverage place, not in the front where the customers go.
Right.
It's in the back. So that's one. Number two, is there any reason why on the east side, the side closest to Axe, that there could be a traffic lane put on that east side also, on the opposite side of that, down in there, correct?
Where the playground is?
Yes.
Oh, we wouldn't, yeah, I don't think we would be, first of all, we don't have room what you see with the site plan for Goddard's requirements, there's a certain amount of playground area they want for each of the different, you know, child ages. And that, what you see, you know, meets that requirement. The site's kind of narrow. And so in order to fit that in, so the two-way drive to the north loops around. And it does so that, you know, you can come all the way back. In addition to which, the part that goes behind the little office building in the back, I actually originally put that in specifically so fire trucks can get around the building in case there was a fire. So that loop is to allow for the circulation to, you know, to come around and back out.
Yeah, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is that without that emergency exit, there's really one way in and one way out for the building in the back and the daycare, because you have two entrances from Bethlehem Pike, but one stops at the daycare. So that's my concern. I would like you to see if you can get that emergency exit, because from a safety standpoint, with the amount of traffic that would occur if an alarm went off to parents, ambulance, police, fire, and everything, you have really one through lane from Bethlehem Pike back to the office building in the back and also the daycare. So
Yeah, I actually don't agree. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't disagree.
okay,
I think we'll look into that. I think it's a good suggestion.
yeah, and if you get the emergency,
Fire
if you
marshal?
get that emergency exit, then that would alleviate, you know. And give you-
I know exactly where you're coming from. I agree. I'm not disagreeing at all.
Okay, well, I want to, because of my tenure here and living in the township since '73, and all of us having to look at the Pike when Anne received an offer that she didn't expect, and the people that owned the property were people in Center City that just sat on the property. And to take a look at this compared to what's there now, God bless you for putting this before us. And I wish you luck in getting that emergency exit. I think it's already been granted from the previous owner to the previous owner. So hopefully you can get that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any more questions from the supervisors?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Number one, what relief exactly are you looking for from the zoning hearing board? And what is the plan for the stormwater management?
Okay, let me answer the zoning board. Although a daycare was previously approved here, it's not one of the listed uses in the D business or Lower Pike overlay. This building is now in the Lower Pike overlay. So the Lower Pike overlay says if you have a similar use to what's permitted, other than the canine country, the kennel, you can get it by special exception. So we've requested a special exception to approve the daycare as a use. That's relief we need. We actually managed to, and it is a small, narrow lot. We managed to fit everything that we need dimensionally on it. We're not asking for anything else.
So just a use variance.
Technically, we need a use variance because daycare is not called out as a permitted use in that zone.
Okay. Thank you. And the stormwater?
Oh, sorry, stormwater. When we see you, if we get approval for the use, then we'll be coming through for land development. And we do have stormwater on the land development plan. I think it's underground, some of it. David, do you remember?
Yeah, no, we've engineers taken in all the calculations. We have two underground, well, let's see, what would you, direct reservoirs to manage it. And it's designed so that the site contains all the water it needs to. And I don't have the plan in front of me, but there's a couple of very heavy dotted lines that the engineer put around the circle, which shows with how the water is captured. And any water that might be off the site is a permitted amount of water. So everything according to our design and the engineer's calculations will be contained right on the site.
And we think we meet the requirements of the stormwater management ordinance. Of
Great.
course, your engineer is going to review the plans and tell
Yeah,
us. but
sure.
we
Right.
think we do.
Yeah. So just curious, what looks like widow walks on top of the building? Is that kind of an architectural standard of the Goddard School, or do you
Well,
plan on putting like the HVAC equipment up there
Well,
behind the
the-
fencing?
Exactly. In the back, on the top there, it's the HVAC. The front is just something to, I guess, it's kind of like a federal style building, if I may add that in. So you have that kind of decoration, above the entrance.
Okay. And I
Similar
agree
to the
with
front
Supervisor
door.
Brandt. These renderings are a sight for sore eyes. Thank you so much for coming in.
Sure.
Great. If there's no more questions, is there any questions from the audience?
I have a question, Mark.
Please go ahead, Tessie.
Yeah, is there, Kate, is there any concern about traffic going in and out of this facility?
No, we have the fellow who is from the Horsham Goddard School, who is going to be running this one. And he said that unlike a regular school, like actually Gwinnett Mercy Elementary down the street, because parents at daycare centers come and go at different times, you don't ever have them stacked up the way you might at a school where everybody arrives at 8:20 or 8:15 or something. He offers full day programs, part day programs, 2 days a week, 3 days a week. And therefore the traffic is spread out, and he does not expect us to have any problem, off of our site with the parents picking up and dropping off. He said there are busier times, of course, but in general, because it's spread out, you don't have a stack of cars waiting to get in or get out.
Okay, thank you.
I have
Okay.
one other thing in reference to what Tessie just brought up. Knowing the site, Kate, you and Mr. Goldstein, just bear in mind what I'm about to say. Being very familiar with the site lines coming out, exiting this site at the upper end on the side where that the arrow is right now, is a very good sight line, both southbound and northbound. And if you're coming out of there, no matter what direction you're going, you're in good shape. The south exit on the lower down, if you move the arrow down, that exit there, that is a concern of mine if somebody is going southbound on Bethlehem Pike towards Ambler, because there is a little hill and there's a crest that comes over there. And if somebody's making a left-hand turn coming out of there, it's something your traffic people should take a look at. You may want to consider making a right only coming out of there. But again, I only mention it for you to take a look at it. If you just go on the current site now, where both entrances on to Bethlehem Pike are, and you experience that yourself, the traffic coming southbound over that hill is tough to see when you're exiting on the south side and making a left.
Okay.
Can I address that, Mr. Brandt?
Oh, sure.
Um, you and I think alike there. That's a one-way in only.
Oh, see,
So-
you're ahead
so-
of me, sir.
So
That's why
we-
you're such a successful man and well thought of in the community.
well,
I hear nothing-
I
I hear
was-
nothing but great things about you. Again, I haven't had a chance to meet you, but you answered that question real quick, and I thank you for you being aware of that in advance.
Yeah, no, that specifically is one way in for that very reason. Having owned the site and having to come out there myself, I made sure that anybody knows we're designing this thing. That's one way in only.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Craig, are there any hands up in the audience?
Yes, Mark Schaefer has his hand up.
Okay, Mark.
Sure. First, I want to say this would be great to have instead of what we have now. And second, I appreciate the respectfulness that the designers have for the trail. That brown line down below is actually a small trail that connects over to McKean Road, and the design is very respectful of that, and the people who are going to use it. And I also want to say my compliments to our supervisors for asking such very specific and well thought questions to address issues like water runoff and traffic and fire and emergencies. Kudos to all the supervisors for their very insightful comments.
Thank you, Mark. Craig, any more hands up?
I don't see any more hands up, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, David, Kate, thank you so much. Very insightful presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We
Look
Thank
forward
you.
to working with you.
more.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
I
Thanks.
hope
We
we
know
see you
welcome.
at the, hope we
You know,
see you
it's
at the
an
goal line.
important piece, so
Yeah,
we want to do it right.
it's very exciting. Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is introduction to development at Ambler Yards. It's an office building. Craig, do we have somebody from Ambler Yards on the?
Yes, we have Matt Siegel. Oh, there's Mark.
Hello.
There's
Yeah,
Mark.
Matt's here as well.
Yep, I saw Matt. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Oh. Okay. So you want to talk to us a little bit about your office building?
Yes, we began working on the development of this portion of the site back in 2018. We had originally intended to develop an apartment building, and this was after the overall development of the Ambler Yards Business Park was well underway and nearing completion. At the time, we solicited input from the board and the township professionals, and we were strongly encouraged to solicit neighbor input. So over the course of the next 2 years, we held 4 separate open house meetings with our neighbors. We received a great deal of feedback from them and also from the zoning hearing board on the architecture of the building. And as a result, we made 3 modifications to the design. And ultimately, we landed on a design that everyone really liked. Even those who objected to the use liked the way that the building looked. We did receive feedback that the building was too big, so we reduced the unit count by 20%. And all told, we spent over $100,000 on this effort, legal, site engineering, design. And on the eve of the zoning hearing board presentation, the Board of Supervisors threatened to object to the development. So we bowed to the board and to the many neighbors who also objected, and we abandoned the apartment plan. Even though at the time, the sentiment among the neighbors we met with was split about 50-50 on the apartment use versus the use of an office building. And in fact, almost all the neighbors who live immediately across from Ambler Yards preferred the apartment building over the office building. But nevertheless, we bowed to the pressure and we backed off. It's not our style to be that combative. So we went back to square one and we asked our engineer to design a site plan for an additional office building with minimal impact. We mailed the plan to all our neighbors along with a letter explaining this was a new plan, and we had another open house and 10 people showed up, and there was 100% support among those 10 people for the new plan. We then engaged Chris Luce of Luce Architects to design the building for us. He hasn't started that yet, but we engaged him. He's for those of you not familiar, he's the architect who designed Gwinnett Walk on Bethlehem Pike, which we understood was well received by the township. Plus, we thought it was a nice project. So here we are now, about to go before the zoning hearing board, and we've been asked to produce renderings and other things, and we're a little gun shy about spending that money based on our recent experience. We have agreed or willing to agree to give the Board of Supervisors architectural approval over the final design, so everyone's comfortable with the building and that it'll fit in with the surrounding buildings. We understand that the board is considering objecting to our appearance at the zoning board hearing. We've been good, responsible neighbors. The development of Ambler Yards has provided a very nice public space. It's practically a park at no cost to the township. And, we ask that you not object to our hearing on later this week.
Well, Mark, I've seen the drawings before, and all this represents, or what this represents, is a blocked out area. I couldn't tell much. I mean, there's porches on those other buildings. Not sure what an office building of 2.5 stories would look like. My house is 2.5 stories, and I wouldn't want offices up there. I mean, I suppose you could put them up there. So it's a little bit lacking in detail, and we couldn't tell, at least I couldn't tell. It looks like the building footprint is right up against the right of way. In other words, there's no, like the other buildings in the drawing here, they have porches on them. So is this going to be a vertical drop, or is there a porch? Is this a rectangle that's just being planted, so to speak?
It's not going to be a
Well,
rectangle depicted there. Matt, were you saying something?
So
that's why we've, are more than willing to.
I think Matt's being frozen out.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's the reason we're more than willing to give the Board of Supervisors a say over the architectural design. We could certainly, maybe the building could be a little longer, sit back a few less feet. I don't anticipate we'd want to have a porch at all. But we haven't designed the building yet. That's a placeholder with the approximate shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I broke up for a second, but that's why, we are more than willing to offer up we have to get the consent of the Board of Supervisors for that look. So there would be lots of discussion and input and opportunity to get it right for everybody.
I'd like to make a comment if I could. This is for the staff, not only for Matt and Mark, but I know there was considerable objection to the townhouses, and that was voiced by a number of the supervisors. I don't recall the full board ever taking a look at this 2-story commercial office building. Now, maybe the subcommittee did say that they were opposed to this, but I have no inkling at all of that. And I just wanted to make that clear to those here present, including our staff. And correct me, staff, if I am not remembering, but I don't know who. Maybe the subcommittee gave you a negative vibe.
I can fill you in, Ed. We saw this first at our B&Z committee. So, and we really couldn't.
That's a committee I'm not on.
That's right.
Right.
So you're not on that committee, and that was the first time I saw it as well. So we couldn't tell anything from this drawing,
Uh-huh.
right? So we can't, there's a footprint. That's it. I can understand where, there's expenses associated with providing additional details. But without additional details, we really can't offer any questions because we don't have an understanding of what it would look like.
Mark,
that's-
I have a question.
So that's where B and Z, Mark, that's where B and Z left it?
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you were kind of putting the cart before the horse. Mark and Matt need to go to the zoning hearing board and plead their case for the use variance. If they get the use variance, then we move on to architectural design, and they've just gave their assurances, and I have no reason to doubt it, given the goodwill that they've built with our township over the past 2 years, that they presumably in the zoning hearing board decision, assuming that you get the use variance, would give architectural review and, require our approval. So whatever building you do develop in that spot blends into the community to the satisfaction of the Board of Supervisors.
But just to clarify, without any explanation as to what the actual structure will look like, there's no way that we as a board can determine if we would object to the use variance because they don't have a by right use. It is C residential, and it is a C residential neighborhood. It's butting up against, across the street, there are homes. Next to them it has what looks like homes operating as businesses or offices, but it looks like homes. So we're putting a potential office commercial building in the midst of a residential area. So before we would make, it's a leap, before we would make a decision as to whether we as a board would be in support of that, without any kind of explanation other than it's going to be a 2.5-story commercial building that from this drawing butts right up to the sidewalk, how can we assure that this is a good use and that we as a board would be in support of this variance?
By creating a
Doesn't butt up to the
condition by
sidewalk.
which they would approve, they would agree to. That
the
the
zoning-
building would be developed to the satisfaction of the Board of Supervisors.
We can't make that decision before they get the use variance. We either have to determine that we're going to be in support of it or object to it. We can't put strings onto the zoning. The zoning board acts autonomously.
But are the other buildings going to be preserved? The ones that look like little houses along the street there?
Yes.
And if so, are they going to be part of a office complex there?
They are now office buildings.
And they're occupied?
3 of them are.
Yeah. So are there any future plans to take one or more of those down, or do you anticipate that they would stay?
There are 2 small garages that would come down. Yeah, there's one of them, and the other is kind of the bottom left. There's the other one. So those 2 garages would come down as part of this proposed plan, but the 4 existing, residential looking office buildings, they would stay.
Is there any explanation as to what you would do with the mature trees that are there in that space?
The pine trees, the pine trees that you see, they would come down.
All?
Pretty much all of them are within the footprint of that lot. There
How
would be
did
some
you
that would
dec-
stay.
How did you decide where to put the location on the property? What, were you trying to preserve these little houses? Well, I shouldn't say little, the houses.
Based upon feedback we've got from the neighborhood, from a whole bunch of folks, everyone wanted the houses to stay, so we reacted to that.
Yeah.
The new building goes, pretty much smack in the middle between the two houses.
And
And all the
do you have,
parking is behind the building, and access to and from the building is through our main entrance. So there'll be
Right.
no access from the street side.
so do you anticipate, I'm having a hard time fitting these buildings together in my mind. Because a 2.5 story commercial office building, is that going to be built similar in style to a house,
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
but just bigger?
Correct.
Yeah, the height of the building would match the surrounding buildings.
But it's 8,000 square feet, so it's not in structure similar to a size of a home. Because the comparable houses next door are, and the one to the left is 3,800 square feet, and the two to the right, 25 and 2,900 square feet. They also do have a 3 and 4.5 foot porch that separates them kind of from the sidewalk and the actual structure.
Yeah,
It
I
is-
really like those little houses. I don't see anything wrong with putting an office building there with the understanding that it would be sympathetic to, in design and looks, to the remaining of house / office buildings. And I'm like Danielle, it's hard to imagine what it might be with just a square drawn on the map.
Well,
Uh,
again, there's nothing to stop us to asking, yes, the zoning hearing board is a quasi judicial body. But there's nothing to stop us to have our solicitor write a letter to the zoning hearing board asking them to please consider a condition whereby the developers agree to architectural review and blessing by the Board of Supervisors on whatever they propose to build on that site. There's nothing wrong with us doing that.
Yeah,
There is nothing wrong with it, and I think that was the agreement of the committee, that without any explanation, we can actually say if we're in agreement with this, whether we would want to object, or we want to send our solicitor or not. We can't make that determination with just a square box.
What
that-
I've just heard from the last three supervisors, I definitely agree with, because you probably, Matt and Mark, have a right to build this office building. And with the square footage is fine, but not seeing the architectural rendering as Danielle and Tessie have stated, I don't think I would be opposed to you going to the zoning hearing board and asking for that. But I certainly would agree with them in saying, I like to see the schematics, what it would look like. And as Tessie just said, it would be, it would just stick out as a sore thumb between the three existing dwellings that look like residential. If you put just a box, a commercial building there, if I lived across the street, I don't think I'd be too happy either.
And
So,
there are homes across the street that.
yes.
Well, again, if we request the assurance from the developers for architectural review and blessing, we end up in the same spot. They won't be able to develop with that use unless we bless it per a zoning hearing board decision.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah. Mhm.
So either way, we're going to have architectural renderings. So to your point previously, this was brought before the B and Z committee, Kat, and said, what's your opinion? So that was our opinion. We couldn't tell anything.
Yeah,
There's the same questions that came up in that meeting. So without more information, I don't want to have anybody spend any more money than they would otherwise have to spend. But no matter what you do, there's got to be some rendering, some understanding of exactly what would go there and what it would look like. So until we get that, I don't want to be overly optimistic. I don't want to be pessimistic either. We can't tell. That's the issue.
Yeah, I for one am relieved that this is the proposed building versus the two previous large buildings that were proposed for the site. My only concern looking at this diagram though would be with the large surface of looks like blacktop in the back. I think that can be addressed, but uh, yeah, I think that once we see the actual final architectural drawings, we'll be able to make a informed decision.
Well, again, I'll just repeat what I said one more time. We will get that. But I think the developers of Ambler Yards have proven themselves to be community-minded. They've worked with us amazingly through the past 2 years. They took a previously underutilized site, brought it to, beyond anybody's expectations of productivity. And they're giving their word, and we can insert a condition on the zoning hearing board use variance. And I just disagree that we should totally take the rug out from underneath this application before the zoning hearing board and object to the use because we don't see the final architectural rendering, but we will before they're if it's a condition, before they're ultimately able to break ground. So it's kind of two different ways to skin a cat. I just feel that they've earned their deference from us, the Board of Supervisors.
I just think that we need to keep in the forefront of our thoughts, the conditional use is an application. We can submit our recommendations. That does not mean that they would be approved. And the conditional use that they're applying for is not by right. It's a C residential. It's a C residential zoning area. So I understand what you're saying, but you're going with the optimism that our letter from our solicitor would ultimately be approved as opposed to it not being approved, and that is a real, thing that we need to take into consideration. So before we could make a determination whether we support or do not support such a change in variance, we should have clarity as far as what it would or what they expect it to look like. Because we can't guarantee that our letter would be approved.
Well, so you're suggesting sending our solicitor and opposing the entire application?
We're suggesting that prior to going to zoning, give us a rendering of what you anticipate the building to look like.
Okay.
What we have now is 8,000 square feet and 2.5 story commercial office building with no idea what that actually would look like in a residential area. Before we can say that we agree or don't agree, give us an expectation of what you plan for it to look like, and then we can make a determination. But just
Okay.
giving us a square box.
Well, I don't agree with that, given all my comments during this conversation. So.
And I'm speaking
Understood.
not just as, I'm just not speaking as a supervisor, but also a neighbor, a resident in that area. That is my neighborhood, and my fellow neighbors coming to me and voicing their objection, whether they were able to make the community meeting or not. I've gotten text messages up until this morning expressing their concern because they have no true idea as to what it would look like.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, Mark.
Besides the architectural appearance of the building, are there any other strong objections to our plan?
I don't have any fundamental objections. I mean, it really comes down to what that building, what that rectangle is going to look like. Right. So I can't, conceptually, I don't have a problem with you building a building there. It's just, what's it going to look like? What's the, is this going to be right there, you got matched the front setbacks of the buildings on the right and on the left. Well, is that going to be a 20-foot wall? I mean, what's it going to look like? We're back to the same question, Mark. So fundamentally, I don't have a problem. I just can't tell you anything.
Does anybody else have any fundamental objections that we
No.
should be aware of?
Not fundamental. I agree with Mark and Danielle and Tess. I'm not opposed for you to go to the zoning hearing board, but there are obvious questions that residents across the street would want to know. What's it going to look like? And so just what Mark said, it's the two of you have done great things for Lower Gwinnett on that site. Very costly things, and you converted it over. And I agree with what Kathy says. And I agree with what Danielle says and Tessie and Mark. It comes down to what's it going to look like?
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Well, that was my next question. Is there anybody like to comment from the audience?
Oh, excuse me. I'm not
You beat me
inserting
to it,
myself to the Board of Supervisors. Well, yes, I do. I have a question. We went down, I went down to see the proposal and obviously in comparison, we were actually quite relieved. But there are questions about, yes, what is it going to look like? Because you're right, the box on the screen doesn't look that great. But as they said, they hadn't had the architects, do their thing. But in retrospect now, I believe that the sole original purpose of when this piece of land became, what was it, Henkel or Amchem or whatever, that the existing homes be there to keep the nature of the neighborhood, whether behind it something else was going on, that was fine. And what's going on behind it is very fine. I was down there this past weekend. It was a little cold, but I had a lovely time. So again, with that in mind, I don't know how this box is going to mimic a single family dwelling that we're sort of used to seeing in our neighborhood. And then as far as zoning goes, whether if this does get built in the size that it is, I mean, 8,000 square feet is pretty big for a single family house. Whether this would be maybe if people, let's say if Ambler Vet, retires and he sells the building and somebody says, okay, I want to put up a building, hey, it's, it's the precedence of what's happening across the street. And then 2 doors down, somebody else sells to a developer and boom, we've got another office building that maybe sort of mimics a house or a very, very, very large house. So I'm just trying to put out my concerns and about what are the long-term ramifications for our neighborhood.
Joan, you're really asking the same questions that we were just discussing.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's a comment, but it's the same type of question. Right?
Well, yeah, but at least, I'm somebody who lives here, besides Danielle, but you know, that's why I'm here.
Okay, Joe. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else out there in the audience, Craig, that has raised their hand?
Sorry. Not seeing any.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Bill Vasoli, and I've lived here about 34 years on Brookside Avenue. And I was wondering if there is any physical aspect to the property that prevents the property from being used for one of the permitted uses that the current zoning ordinance provides.
No, I'm not sure I understand your question. I mean, they're still going to have to go to zoning, if that's your question.
Except for if they were to build a single family home, because
Right.
it's still zoned as C residential. So the only use that they could use it for would be as a single family home.
Right, so that, okay, so they would need a variance to build anything other than a single family home.
Correct.
Because my concern is that it occurs to me, and maybe I'm wrong, that it was zoned that way for a very good reason back when the planners did that, and that being to provide a buffer between the residential district and the industrial district closer to the tracks that is now Ambler Yards, and it served that purpose very well. Currently, there's as you come in from Ambler on North Spring Garden, you see the houses on both sides, the three houses, and then trees in the space where this is proposed development is to occur. And then once you get to Brookside Avenue and beyond, it's it's clearly industrial on the left, but still residential on the right. And it just seems like that nature of that neighborhood, that it was, I think, intended for by the zoning people way back when, would definitely be compromised unless this structure is, something very residential looking. Then I guess you could pull it off. But again, going back to what you guys are saying, having not seen it or not seen some kind of rendering, I don't know how you could make a ruling, whether it be in favor of moving forward or not.
Right. We can't tell. That's your point, Bill. We're agreeing with you. Can't tell. Need more information. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, unless there's another hand being raised, I think we need to move on.
I have one last question.
Okay, Joan, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm looking at this and I don't know, like, is this footprint covering up what used to be 2 single family homes? Two separate homes, because it's a large space. I was just wondering about what was originally there.
As I understand, there were 2 homes that were there at one point.
Okay, so that would make a nice amount of homes across. Okay, just a question.
Okay, Joan, thank you. Okay, unless there's no more questions from Mark or Matt, I think we can move on to the next issue. Thank you for attending tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome. Okay, next up is resolution number 2021-10, authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement with Ambler. Can I have our solicitor, Neil, speak to us about this?
I don't know if I've seen him on here.
He was on earlier.
Yeah.
Call him earlier. I don't know where he is now.
I'm still here.
He's still there.
There he is.
I thought I disappeared.
So did I.
They did.
My wife might have been happy, but in any event, this is an intergovernmental cooperation agreement, a proposed agreement with Ambler Borough, the purpose of which is for Lower Gwynedd to assist Ambler Borough in obtaining a grant through the Military Installation Remediation and Infrastructure Authority that is presently overseeing the remediation of the former Willow Grove Naval Air Station. The proposal by Ambler is to use the grant for remediation, PFAS remediation on their well number 14. If there's an issue with well number 14 that somehow would prevent the remediation, the funds would be used for well number 12. The grant requires a local effort, that is local funds to be contributed to the project. And Ambler Borough has requested Lower Gwynedd's financial assistance in an amount not to exceed $250,000 because Lower Gwynedd residents are served by well number 14. So the state statute requires that before you can cooperate with Ambler Borough, you sign an intergovernmental cooperation agreement. And that's what's before you this evening.
Okay, so if I understood it correctly, this effort is to put a filter on one of the wells. Is that correct? Serving Lower Gwynedd Township?
That's correct.
Okay.
This is the thing that we already authorized, and I guess maybe 2 meetings ago or 3 meetings ago. This is just the agreement.
Correct.
Okay. Any of the supervisors have any questions about this?
The only question I may have, I do have, and we could have reviewed this meetings ago, like Danielle mentioned. What is the safeguard that Lower Gwynedd residents have and the Board of Supervisors have in confirming, either have already confirmed or can confirm the fact that that well is basically part of it, or the half of it, is being used by Lower Gwynedd Township? I mean, who makes that determination, and how can we protect ourselves with that?
Well, there are clauses in the agreement that give Lower Gwynedd not just the right, but the duty, if you will, to review all of the grant materials and to have our staff, including our engineering staff, make sure that the grant application is proper and complete in all respects and is serving the needs of the residents of Lower Gwynedd Township. This would not be a situation where we would just provide the funds and then sit back and hope for the best.
Well, Neil, has that been done, or will it be done?
I believe it's
By the
already been done, but I would have to refer you to Craig on that particular issue.
Mr. Brand, I had Gilmore review the plans and to provide us the information about what wells are supplied to, or what water is supplied from which wells to Lower Gwynedd Township. And both wells 14 and 12 are both provide water to Lower Gwynedd Township residents.
Well, thank you for confirming that. That answers my concern.
Okay, are there any more questions from the supervisors?
I have a question. Neil, is there any downside in applying for this grant?
I did not see any downside. I reviewed the grant application. I reviewed the statute and the authority rules under which the grant would be filed. Of course, if for some reason the grant application is denied, our financial contribution comes back to the township with any interest that's earned on that money.
Thank you.
Any more
All right,
questions?
with that said, I'd make a motion to approve resolution 21-10.
Well, thank you, Ed, but I wanted to know if there's anybody in the audience that has any questions or concerns?
There was a few questions, but I think they would have all been answered through our little discussion here. So,
Okay, all right.
So I'll
Thank you
second the
very much.
motion.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
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 I,
Thank you. Next up is authorization to review and submit an application to become a tree city. Kat, the last time this was up in front of us, you had some questions about some appendix. And I
Yeah,
believe,
just that I didn't have them and was
Right.
unable to review the whole packet. I have since gotten them reviewed. Everything's good. I think the real work will come when we start drafting the bylaws, but I'm fine with this.
okay. Are there any questions from any of the supervisors? Are there any questions from members of the audience? Can I
it
have a motion?
does not appear, Mr. Chairman. Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Craig. I was a little quick. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, next thing is exciting here. We're purchasing a new lawnmower. I think Fred's our new director here is on the meeting. Fred, are you out there?
I'm here.
Okay. Could you talk to us a little bit about this?
Yeah, it's a zero-turn lawnmower. It's replacing an older mower which has seen better days. We use them. We have two. We use one for parks and cutting the baseball fields and athletic fields in between our contracted cuts just to make sure they're well maintained. And then the other one we use for right-of-ways, for the sewer right-of-ways and along the roads. The one that gets used for the sewer right-of-ways takes quite a beating because it's not like turf lawn, it's cutting. So the John Deere that we're getting rid of is actually the one we're doing the right-of-ways with. We'll pass the other one down from the Parks Department to do that, and the newer mower will actually go for use in the parks.
Okay, so this is for the purchase of one mower?
Yes,
Expensive mower.
yes.
Okay. Are there any questions from the supervisors?
No, I just have a comment. I'm impressed the fact that we got 22 years out of the mower that it's replacing.
Yeah.
That's a long time being
Yeah.
out there every year. So Fred, is that normal?
I would say that's probably a little longer than they usually last. I would love to take credit for it, but since it's long before my time, I think that Nick, our mechanic, and the guys who use the mower, it's credit to them that they take good care of the equipment.
Yeah, I guess that mower's seen at least 3 different public works directors.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I have a question, Fred. Are there any electric or hybrid mowers on the market?
I don't know. I didn't even consider looking at that. I didn't see any offhand, but I didn't really ask either.
Yeah, I know just for homeowners, more and more equipment. I've just bought quite a variety of electric, lithium battery powered equipment, so that you don't have the pollution and the fumes from the internal engine.
Sure.
And I would just like for you to consider that in future purchases.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions from the audience?
I am not seeing any.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Fred.
Thanks.
Next up, citizens' comments, concerns, or questions for items that weren't on the agenda. Are there any comments from members of the audience?
I have a comment.
Hi, Carol.
How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. How are you?
Good. I had dropped off a letter yesterday to the township building that I had drafted for Joshua Shapiro, the Attorney General, Ken Lawrence, the Chair of the Montgomery County Board of Elections, Kevin Steele, the District Attorney, and the State Ethics Commission concerning the activities of our current tax collector, Linda Sachs. And I'd like to read, if not all of it, at least some of it. It has recently come to my attention that the appointed tax collector for Lower Gwinnett Township, Montgomery County, Ms. Linda Sachs, has been conducting personal campaign activities out of her public office. Ms. Sachs maintains an office in which she performs her official tax collection duties for the township and county, and at which location members of the public are invited to visit during open walk-in hours on Wednesdays at 921 Bethlehem Pike, Ambler, PA 19002. Between April 21st and April 30th of 2021, the office was open 6 of the 10 calendar days. The township compensates Ms. Sachs for her use of the office space to perform her tax collection duties in the form of rent payments. Through my own observation, Ms. Sachs has been using this office to maintain and display large signage related to her personal election campaign. Through conversation with neighbors, it has been communicated with me that Ms. Sachs has been campaigning while performing her tax collection duties in this office. The actions of Ms. Sachs represent flagrant violations of the Public Official and Employee Ethics Act, Pennsylvania Code, 65 Pennsylvania Code, Statute 1101. It is well settled under the Act and Pennsylvania case law that the use by a public official and official resources related to its elected government position represents a violation of the Act, which subjects the public official to criminal penalties, conflict of interest. No public official or public employee shall engage in conduct that constitutes a conflict of interest. And then it goes into definitions of a public official and also conflict of interest. I won't go into that, but Ms. Sachs is an appointed or elected public official as that term is defined in section 1102 of the act above. Additionally, as an appointed elected collector of county taxes, Ms. Sachs is also subject to the Montgomery County Employee Code of Ethics, the county code, which is intended to set forth and govern the ethical conduct of all individuals employed by Montgomery County. Section 4B of the county code specifically prohibits the following.
Carol, I'm going to have to stop you there. I mean, I understand you've written this letter.
Yes.
The township has no jurisdiction over this matter at all. She holds a public office, and there isn't any action this board has.
Well, the board has appointed her.
That's the board's job under the rules that we have in front of us.
And are you not elected? But the supervisors also represent the public of Lower Gwinnett Township. Is that correct?
But Carol, we have no action under this. We have no jurisdiction unless our solicitor can tell us otherwise. Neil, do we have any jurisdiction?
I think Carol has the right to bring this to our attention because we're going to be voting in a short period of time. And if there is somebody behaving in this election that's behaving unethically in some way, I think it's, Carol has the right to bring this to our attention.
Well, and she's done that with our letter, but where does this stop?
That's the question. That's exactly the question, because we are in the middle of an election cycle. This has been going on. It's not brand new for the township. She does represent Lower Gwinnett Township when collecting our taxes. And it's been 10 days since I originally brought this up, and the sign is still in the window, which you can visibly see from the street and from the office in the parking lot.
But Carol, we have no jurisdiction. It's the same question if something was going on in the school board.
I think.
Can we hear from Mr. Stein? Can we hear from Mr. Stein?
Yeah, I can't opine as to the facts because I'm not aware of them. The legal citations made in the letter are accurate. if proven the conduct violates state statutes and state ethics laws. Once Mrs. Sachs was appointed tax collector, she became a state official. She's subject to the jurisdiction of the State Ethics Commission. I can look into this further, but in reviewing the statute, I didn't see any authority or remedies on the part of the municipality that it could take in order to cease this activity. It should absolutely, however, be referred to the State Ethics Commission if the facts are as alleged.
And
So
I
I
think you've done that, right, Carol?
Yes.
Okay.
So as supervisors, though, we can take, I don't know, an abundance of integrity and ask our tax collector to remove the sign. Has anyone asked her to remove the sign?
I have not. Right. But again, we're back to where do we draw the line on this?
So I think the other line that we could draw is that the State Ethics Commission clearly offers training to all publicly elected officials. And it's clear by some of the behavior that maybe everyone's not clear as to the act and the oath that they took. So I would suggest that I would implore that we partake in one of those trainings and offer it to all elected officials in Lower Gwinnett Township. I think that would be the next best step for us. And they're all virtual.
Well, and I also object to summarily categorizing our tax collector as behaving unethically, because what is alleged in that letter is basically hearsay.
You can see the
it's-
photograph of her in there. And when I spoke with her, she told me more than once that she owns the building and she can have that sign there. Now you can see, I sent it to the township, that it's in the window of the township, and that's clearly a violation, and no one has asked her to remove it.
But Carol, if I understand what you did, you took the correct course of action. I'm not sure what it is that you think this board should do.
I'm not really sure what the board should do either, but however, I know that she does represent Lower Gwinnett Township and the taxpayers. And I can't imagine that Lower Gwinnett wouldn't be able to at least say something in light of whatever else that I did to someone that just thinks that she owns the building and has the right to do whatever she wants in it when Lower Gwinnett is paying her to rent the building.
Well,
No, we're not doing that.
She's a
Her
state
building.
official, and this is not something. The correct course of action, Carol, is the course you took.
Okay.
Right, and we don't have jurisdiction over that, and I wouldn't want jurisdiction over that, because you would have the school board could say that about us if they didn't like something we did. Right, we're not subject to the school board. The tax collector is not subject to the board of supervisors. Those are the rules. We're constricted by what our solicitor just provided us. She's subject to the state ethics commission.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more comments or questions from members of the audience?
Anyone have a comment or a question? You can raise your hand.
There's a iPad had their hand raised.
I'm sorry, Jamie, did you say I didn't?
I thought I saw one hand, but it's down now, so I guess not.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Managers report. Craig.
This Saturday is the e-cycle and paper shredding day from 8 a.m. to 12 noon in the township parking lot. We'll be there. Just ask everyone to stay in their cars, pop your trunk or your hatch for your SUV or your pickup trucks or whatever you're bringing, and we'll get it taken out. No need to get out of your car, and we'll stay safe and we'll have a good day. So that's about it.
I can't believe it's finally arrived. I feel like we've been talking for years about our e-cycle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's a big hit in the township.
Yes.
And my question to Craig is, we have in the past checked IDs. I hope that we certainly do that this Saturday.
Yeah, we have it in the past and we are set up to check everyone's ID and have it just for Lower Gwinnett residents because we're using Lower Gwinnett residents tax money.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Craig. Supervisors' comments. Mr. Brandt, any thoughts?
The only one question I have for maybe Craig is that the tax collector, to my knowledge, is compensated salary-wise, but I don't think the township pays any money towards any rental or use of a building that a tax collector, any tax collector uses. Craig, could you confirm that?
You are correct, Mr. Brandt. We do not pay her to use her, well, we never paid Betty Lou Yost to use her house. We don't pay Linda Sachs to use her building. We don't pay rent to anyone.
So it's
We do pay her compensation by each tax bill that she sends out.
Right. Okay. Thank you for answering that.
Okay, Kath.
Yeah, well, Fred, your mower request brought this thought to the forefront. As spring is blooming in Lower Gwinnett Township, our parks are looking really, really nice. And in particular, Veterans Park with all the, the clearing out of the bushes and the weeds. And I don't know if you treated the grass or what, but it's just looking really, really spectacular. So I know it's a lot of work. So please pass that on to your guys. I did text Mitch and commented, but your whole crew should be aware of that. They look fantastic. And the new signs that have gone up too. Penn Ambler and Oxford, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, they look good. They look great.
Thanks. I'll pass that along.
I have one other question I just thought of. Again, this is for our manager. Craig, I understand that the sign at Penn Ambler and Bethlehem Pike is budgeted to be an electronic sign this year. Is that correct? And is that still in the budget?
At Penn Ambler and the at the Veterans Park?
That's
The
right.
Spring House.
The Spring House.
Yeah. Yes. It's in the budget. We will be working on that to get some numbers for that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Danielle, any thoughts? You're on mute.
I just wanted to remind everybody that we're having a special meeting tomorrow between Park and Rec and the supervisors. Come out and participate and engage with us. Beyond that, next Tuesday is election day. Participate in your civic duty. Some of the polling locations have changed. So I think it's all on our website. Just to remind everybody. That's all.
Thank you. Tessie.
Yeah, I'm encouraged that that we just voted to be a tree city, and I'm not going to give up on using the recycling refund that we get toward environmental action, and I'm going to plan to talk to Dr. Schaefer about this and see what sort of plan we might come up with to propose to the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you very much, Tessie. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending. We have a primary coming up. We've got an e-cycling event coming up. As Danielle said, we have Board of Supervisors meetings with the Parks and Rec. So we have a busy couple of weeks coming up here. So all the details are on the website, and please come if you're interested and able to do so.
And tomorrow's meeting's at 6.
Yeah, yes, it is.
Tomorrow's meeting is at 6. Yes, it is, Mr. Brown.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for attending. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night.
Everyone have a good night.